The ballroom glittered like a jewelry box. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across 200 guests in designer gowns, their laughter echoing off marble walls. They were there for charity, or at least that's what the invitations claimed. Nathan Hayes stood in the corner where drivers belonged, invisible. He watched the crowd the way he'd been trained to, not as a chauffeur, but as something he used to be. His eyes tracked patterns, exit routes, faces that smiled too wide. He'd been driving Olivia Cartwright for 2 months now, ever since her father died. Heart attack, the death certificate said. Nathan had his doubts, but doubt didn't pay for Sophie's medical bills, so he showed up on time, kept his mouth shut, and stayed in the shadows. Olivia moved through the room in white silk, shaking hands with people who wanted pieces of her father's fortune. She was 29 and alone at the top of a billion-dollar company. The press loved her, her family tolerated her, and someone, Nathan was increasingly certain, wanted her dead. That's when he saw it. A waiter cutting through the crowd. Wrong shoulders, wrong eyes. The man's gaze locked onto Olivia's champagne glass before she even reached for it. The glass touched her hand. She smiled at someone, lifted it toward her lips. Nathan had 4 seconds. No time to shout, no time to explain. He crossed the ballroom floor and kissed her. He grabbed her wrist and pulled her close. His mouth met hers before she could scream. Desperate, hard, not a kiss born of desire, but survival. The champagne transferred from her lips to his, bubbles, and something else. Something bitter that burned like metal and chemicals spreading across his tongue. The ballroom went silent. 200 people stared. Phones came out, fingers pointed. Olivia shoved him back hard. Her eyes blazed with fury and humiliation. Her hand rose to slap him, but Nathan's vision was already blurring at the edges. The poison was working. She thought he'd lost his mind. She had no idea he'd just saved her life. And now he was dying in her place. The slap came hard across his face, snapping his head to the side. The crack echoed through the silent ballroom. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Olivia's voice cut through the shocked murmurs. Her face was flushed red with rage and humiliation. 200 guests had just watched her driver kiss her like a drowning man. Nathan grabbed her arm, probably too hard, and pulled her toward the exit. His tongue felt thick and numb. Words came out slurred. "Need to talk. Now." She tried to yank free, but something in his voice, or maybe the way his left eye was watering uncontrollably, made her stop fighting. She followed him into the hallway. The heavy doors closed behind them, muffling the chaos inside. The corridor was empty, lined with gold-framed mirrors that reflected them back in infinite repetition. Nathan leaned against the wall, fighting the urge to vomit. Olivia stood 3 feet away, arms crossed, waiting for an explanation that would make sense of what he'd just done. "You have 10 seconds, she said, voice cold and controlled. "Before I call the police." Nathan forced the words out. "Your champagne was poisoned." She stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. "I saw the waiter," he continued, each word harder than the last. "Something was wrong. The way he moved, the way he looked at you. I didn't have time to knock it away, so I—" He gestured vaguely at his mouth, at hers, at the space between them that had been violently closed 30 seconds ago. Olivia laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "That's insane. You're telling me you kissed me because you thought someone poisoned my drink? Do you hear yourself?" But her voice wavered on the last word. She was smart, smarter than most people gave her credit for. She'd been running a multi-billion-dollar company for 6 months without a single major mistake. She knew how to read a room, and right now she was reading him. "Look at me," Nathan said. He stepped into the light and let her see his face properly. His lips were starting to swell, turning an ugly red. Small blisters were forming at the corners of his mouth. His left eye was watering uncontrollably, tears streaming down his cheek without permission. Olivia's expression shifted from anger to something else, Fear, maybe, or recognition. "Oh my God," she whispered. She reached toward his face, then pulled back like she was afraid to touch him. "We need to get you to a hospital." Nathan shook his head and immediately regretted it as the hallway tilted. "Not yet. The waiter. Did you see where he went?" Olivia wasn't listening. She had her phone out, fingers moving across the screen. "I'm calling 911. He caught her wrist, gentler this time. "If you do that, whoever poisoned you will disappear. They'll know it didn't work. They'll try again." His vision was definitely getting worse now. Shadows creeping in from the sides. "I need you to trust me for about 5 minutes. Can you do that?" She looked at him for a long moment, weighing options he couldn't see. Finally, she nodded. 5 minutes. Then we're going to the hospital. And you're going to tell me who you really are, because drivers don't talk like you're talking. Nathan leaned against the wall, buying time, buying strength. His hands were shaking now, fine tremors he couldn't control. "I used to work for the Secret Service," he said. "Presidential detail. I was good at reading threats, reading people." He swallowed hard, tasted copper and chemicals. "I left 3 years ago. My wife died. Car accident. I had a daughter to raise alone. The hours didn't work anymore." It was the truth. Or close enough. He left out the parts that didn't fit in 5 minutes. Olivia processed this with the same focus she brought to board meetings. "So, my father hired you?" Nathan nodded. "He called me 2 weeks before he died. Said he needed a driver he could trust. Someone with a specific skill set. He died before we could meet in person." Something flickered across Olivia's face, too fast to read. "He never mentioned you." She pulled up her phone, fingers moving quickly. "I'm looking at the hiring records. You were processed through HR like everyone else. Standard background check, standard contract." "That's what he wanted," Nathan said. He could feel consciousness slipping, his body shutting down systems to fight the poison. "Olivia, I need you to call someone. Not the hospital, not yet." He recited a phone number and made her repeat it back twice. "Tell him Nathan Hayes drank approximately 2 ounces of poisoned champagne at the Cartwright gala. Tell him I need Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She'll know what to do." Olivia was already dialing, her face pale but focused. Nathan respected that. No hysterics, no panic, just action. She was her father's daughter. The call connected, and she relayed the information exactly as he'd said it. Then she listened to whoever was on the other end. "He says 20 minutes, she told Nathan. "He's sending someone." She knelt beside him. When had he ended up on the floor? And took his hand. Her fingers were cold, or maybe his were just burning up. "Stay with me," she said. "Tell me about your daughter." Smart distraction. Keep him talking. Keep him conscious. Nathan tried to smile, felt his face crack. "Her name is Sophie. She's 7, 2nd grade. She wants to be a veterinarian." The words came slower now, his tongue thick and clumsy. "She has her mother's eyes, brown with gold flecks. She laughs like her too, loud and sudden, like she can't help it." "What happened to your wife?" Olivia's voice was soft, almost gentle. Nathan had never heard her sound like that. At work she was all business, all sharp edges and quick decisions. This was different. This was real. "Car accident," he said again, because the truth was too complicated, and he didn't have enough oxygen for complicated. 3 years ago, I was at work. She was driving home from her sister's house. A truck ran a red light." All true. All incomplete. Olivia's grip tightened on his hand. "I'm sorry." She meant it. He could hear it in her voice, the weight of understanding that came from losing someone too soon. The door at the end of the hallway opened, and Nathan tried to focus on the figure approaching. Dark suit, medical bag, purposeful stride. Dr. Sarah Mitchell looked exactly like she had 3 years ago when she'd treated him for a concussion after a training incident. She knelt beside him, professional and efficient, checking his pupils, his pulse, his breathing. "What was it?" she asked Olivia. I don't know, Olivia said. I didn't drink it. Sarah looked at Nathan. Symptoms? He tried to list them, but his brain was getting fuzzy. Metallic taste, burning, throat closing, vision blurring, numbness spreading. Sarah was already pulling supplies from her bag, setting up an IV with practiced speed. Could be several things. Cyanide, strychnine, arsenic compound. Won't know for sure until we get labs, but we're going to assume worst case and treat accordingly. She looked at Olivia. I need you to tell me everything about that drink. Where it came from, who handled it, anything you remember. While Sarah worked, Olivia talked. The champagne tower at the center of the room. The waiter who'd appeared at her elbow offering a glass from his tray. She hadn't thought anything of it. Why would she? It was a charity gala, her event, her guests. Nathan felt the IV bite into his arm, cool liquid flooding his system. Sarah was talking, explaining something about activated charcoal and chelating agents. But the words blurred together. He caught fragments. Blood work. Observation. Lucky. Lucky. He'd stolen poison from a woman's mouth and she was calling him lucky. He supposed from a certain angle she was right. If he hadn't been watching, if he hadn't recognized the threat, if he'd been a normal driver doing a normal job, Olivia would be the one on the floor right now. The thought cleared his head like cold water. He grabbed Sarah's wrist and forced the words out. The waiter! Gray suit, brown hair, scar on his left hand. Someone needs to find him. Sarah looked at Olivia. Call hotel security now. Lock down all exits. Olivia was already moving, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp with authority. Nathan heard her telling someone to seal the building, check security footage, find a waiter who didn't exist on any staff list. Sarah finished with the IV and sat back on her heels. You're stable for now. We've bought some time. But Nathan, you need a hospital. Real facilities, real labs. This is field medicine, not treatment. He nodded, felt the world spin. 10 minutes. I need 10 minutes. He looked past Sarah to where Olivia was still on the phone, pacing the hallway in her white dress that probably cost more than his car. She's in danger. If I go to the hospital, she's alone. She has security, Sarah pointed out. Nathan shook his head and immediately regretted the movement. Her security called in sick this morning. Convenient timing. I'm all she has right now. He could see Sarah weighing it, the doctor's oath against the reality of the situation. Finally, she nodded. 10 minutes. Then you're going, conscious or not. She stood and walked over to Olivia, said something Nathan couldn't hear. Olivia's face went hard, that boardroom expression settling into place. She ended her call and came back to where Nathan was propped against the wall. Hotel security found the jacket, but no waiter. They're checking footage now. She crouched down so they were at eye level. Nathan, tell me the truth. All of it. My father hired you because he thought someone was trying to kill him, didn't he? No point in lying now. Nathan nodded. He called me 2 weeks before he died. Said he'd discovered something. Someone in the company was embezzling, hiding it through offshore accounts and shell corporations. He'd narrowed it down to 2 people but couldn't prove which one. He wanted me close to you as protection while he figured it out. Olivia's jaw tightened. He died before he could tell you who? Another nod. And you think whoever killed him is now trying to kill me? It wasn't a question. She understood the pattern. Saw the thread connecting her father's sudden death to tonight's champagne. I think you know something you don't know you know, Nathan said. Something your father might have told you, or something in his files. And someone is afraid you'll figure it out. Who? The single word carried the weight of 6 months of grief and confusion. Nathan wished he had an answer. Your father mentioned 2 names, Richard Bartlett, your CFO, and David Sutton, head of acquisitions. He watched her face carefully. Do either of those names mean anything special to you? Olivia stood abruptly and started pacing. Richard's been with the company for 15 years. He was my father's college roommate. David's newer, maybe 5 years, but he's brilliant. Brought in some of our biggest deals." She stopped and turned back to Nathan. "You think one of them poisoned my champagne?" "I think one of them hired someone to poison your champagne," Nathan corrected. "The waiter was a professional. The way he moved, the way he positioned himself, the way he disappeared. That's not amateur hour." He could feel the medication working now, pushing back against the poison, giving him enough clarity to think. "We need to get you somewhere safe, somewhere private. Then we need to look at your father's files." Olivia pulled out her phone again. "I have copies of everything at my apartment, complete digital archive of his computer, his emails, his calendar for the last 2 years. She was already texting someone. "I'm telling my assistant to cancel the rest of the evening, family emergency." She looked at Nathan. "Can you walk?" He could try. Sarah helped him to his feet and kept a steadying hand on his elbow as the hallway decided to tilt sideways. "This is a terrible idea," she informed them both. "You should be in a hospital, and she should be surrounded by actual security professionals." "Noted," Nathan said. He took a step, then another, forcing his legs to remember how walking worked. Olivia moved to his other side, lending support without being asked. Together, the three of them made their way to the service elevator, avoiding the ballroom and its 200 witnesses to Nathan's very public indiscretion. The drive to Olivia's apartment took 15 minutes through downtown traffic. Nathan spent it fighting nausea and watching the side mirrors for anyone following them. Sarah sat in the back monitoring his vitals and muttering medical opinions about stubborn patients. Olivia drove with the same focused intensity she brought to everything else, weaving through cars with practiced ease. They pulled into the underground garage of a building that probably had better security than most government facilities. Olivia used a key card to access a private elevator that opened directly into her penthouse. The door slid open onto a space that looked nothing like Nathan expected. No gold fixtures or crystal chandeliers, just clean lines, comfortable furniture, and walls covered in photographs, family pictures. Olivia with her father at various ages. Olivia with a woman who had to be her mother. Olivia graduating college, cutting ribbons, shaking hands with dignitaries. "Surprised?" Olivia asked, catching his expression. "People expect billionaires to live like movie villains. I just wanted a home." She led them to a study off the main living area, walls lined with bookshelves and a desk that held 3 large monitors. Sarah made Nathan sit in a leather chair while she checked his vitals again. Pulse still elevated, blood pressure dropping, pupils reactive but sluggish. She looked at him. "You're stabilizing, but you're not out of danger. I'm staying until we figure out exactly what you ingested." Olivia was already at the desk, fingers flying across keyboards, pulling up files and folders. "My father's digital archive. Everything from his computer, his phone, his tablet. I had it all pulled after he died." She looked back at Nathan. "I went through most of it. Financial reports, emails, meeting notes." Nothing jumped out as suspicious. Nathan pushed himself out of the chair, ignored Sarah's protest, and moved to stand behind Olivia. "Show me his calendar. Last 2 months before he died." The calendar filled the screen, color-coded blocks representing meetings and appointments. Nathan scanned the entries, looking for patterns. Lots of meetings with Richard Bartlett, the CFO. Weekly dinners with someone listed only as DS. David Sutton, probably. Monthly board meetings, daily briefings with department heads, and then, 2 weeks before his death, a single entry that stood out. JK, confidential audit, off-site. Nathan pointed at it. "Who's JK?" Olivia zoomed in on the entry and frowned. "I don't know. There's no location, no follow-up, nothing in his emails about it." "An audit," Sarah said from behind them. "That's what you do when you suspect financial irregularities." Nathan nodded. He was gathering evidence, probably hired an outside auditor to look at the books quietly. He scrolled through the following days, looking for any mention of JK or audit results. Nothing. The entry just sat there, isolated and unexplained. And then 8 days later, Olivia's father was dead. "We need to find JK, Nathan said. They might have the proof your father was looking for." Olivia was already searching, pulling up company contacts, vendor lists, consultant registries. "There's no one with those initials in any of our current files." She bit her lip, thinking. Wait, my father kept a personal address book. Old school, paper and pen. He said some things shouldn't be digital. She left the study and returned a moment later with a leather-bound book, pages worn soft from use. She flipped through it quickly, running her finger down columns of handwritten names and numbers. "Here. James Kirkland, forensic accountant, Boston address." Nathan felt something click into place. "Call him now." Olivia reached for her phone, then hesitated. "If someone's willing to poison me at a public event, they might be monitoring my phone." Smart and paranoid, Nathan approved. "Use mine." He pulled out a basic prepaid cell, the kind that couldn't be traced or tracked. "I keep it for emergencies." Olivia took the phone and dialed the number from her father's book. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. She left a careful message identifying herself, saying she needed to discuss an audit he'd done for her father, asking him to call back at this number. When she hung up, the 3 of them stood in silence, the weight of unanswered questions filling the room. Finally, Sarah spoke. "You need to call the police. This is attempted murder. Let professionals handle it." Olivia shook her head. "If we call the police, whoever did this will lawyer up. We'll never prove anything. My father dies of a heart attack, I almost drink poison champagne, and a forensic accountant goes silent. Without hard evidence, it's all just coincidence." "She's right," Nathan said. Sarah gave him a look that suggested he was being an idiot, but she didn't argue. Olivia started pacing, her earlier composure cracking at the edges. "My father knew. He knew someone was stealing from the company. And he knew they were dangerous enough to kill him, and he tried to protect me by hiring you." She turned to Nathan, eyes bright with unshed tears. "But he died anyway, and now someone's tried to kill me. What am I supposed to do? Who can I trust?" Nathan wanted to tell her it would be okay, that they'd figure it out, that justice would prevail. But he'd been down this road before. He knew how hard it was to prove murder when it was made to look like natural causes, knew how evidence disappeared, and witnesses changed their stories, and powerful people stayed protected. "You trust the evidence," he said. "We find what your father found. We prove the embezzlement, and we prove whoever did it was willing to kill to keep it hidden." The prepaid phone rang, sudden and loud in the quiet room. Olivia grabbed it and answered. "Hello? Yes. This is Olivia Cartwright. Thank you for calling back." She listened, her face going pale. "I see. No, I understand. Is there any way we could meet? It's urgent." More listening. "Tomorrow morning? Yes, I'll be there. Thank you." She ended the call and looked at Nathan. "James Kirkland says my father hired him to audit the company's offshore accounts. He found evidence of systematic embezzlement going back 7 years. Nearly $50 million moved through shell corporations and false vendors." "Did he tell your father?" Nathan asked. Olivia nodded. "He sent his report 3 days before my father died. Complete breakdown of the fraud with documentation. He says my father called him after receiving it, said he was going to confront the person responsible." That was the last time they spoke. She sat down heavily in the desk chair. "He also said someone broke into his office last month. They didn't take anything, but his files were disturbed. He's been scared ever since." Nathan's mind was already working through the implications. "Your father confronted the embezzler. The embezzler killed him and made it look like a heart attack. But your father was careful. He must have hidden copies of the audit somewhere, insurance in case something happened. And now the embezzler is afraid you'll find those copies." He looked at Olivia. "Where would your father hide something he wanted to keep absolutely secret?" Olivia thought for a long moment. There's a safe deposit box at First National downtown. I have a key, but I've never opened it. My father told me once that it contained important documents, but only to access it if something happened to him. She met Nathan's eyes. I thought he was being paranoid. After he died, I couldn't face going through his things. I told myself there was time. We go tomorrow, Nathan said. First thing in the morning. Get whatever's in that box. Sarah cleared her throat. Tomorrow, Nathan goes to a real hospital for real treatment. He's lucky to be conscious right now. Nathan ignored her and kept his focus on Olivia. Who else knows about the safe deposit box? Olivia frowned. I don't know. Maybe his lawyer. Maybe Richard. They were close friends. My father might have mentioned it. The thought landed like ice water. If Richard Bartlett was the embezzler and he knew about the safe deposit box, they were already running out of time. Nathan pulled out his phone, his real phone this time, and made a call. Jack, it's Nathan Hayes. I need a favor. Jack Morrison had been his partner in the Secret Service, the one person he'd stayed in contact with after leaving. I need overnight protection. 2 people, high-risk situation. Can you spare anyone? A pause while Jack asked questions Nathan couldn't fully answer. Personal job, off the books. I'll explain later. Another pause. Thanks. I owe you. He hung up and turned to Olivia. 2 agents are coming. They'll stay here tonight. Keep watch. Sarah stays too. Keeps me alive. Tomorrow we get the audit files and figure out who killed your father. Olivia looked like she wanted to argue, then simply nodded. The fight had gone out of her, replaced by exhaustion and grief and fear. Nathan recognized the look. He'd seen it in the mirror for months after his wife died. The agents arrived within an hour, professional and efficient. Nathan knew them both from his old life, trusted them to do the job without asking questions he couldn't answer yet. They secured the apartment, checked sightlines and entry points, settled in for a long night. Sarah made Nathan lie down on the couch, hooked him up to a portable monitor, and told him to sleep if he could. Olivia disappeared into her bedroom, and Nathan heard the quiet sound of crying through the closed door. He stared at the ceiling, feeling the poison still working through his system, slower now but persistent. His thoughts kept circling back to the ballroom, that moment when he'd seen the wrong pattern in the crowd. He'd acted on instinct, muscle memory from years of training. But it was more than that. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he'd known this was coming, known that the job was never just about driving a car. His wife used to tell him he was terrible at being normal. She'd meant it as a joke, but she was right. Normal people didn't see threats in every shadow. Normal people didn't carry prepaid phones for emergencies. Normal people didn't kiss billionaires to steal poison from their mouths. Morning came gray and cold, rain streaking the windows. Nathan woke to Sarah checking his vitals and declaring him miraculously not dead. You should be in a hospital, she said for what felt like the 10th time. Noted, he replied for what felt like the 10th time. Olivia emerged from her bedroom looking pale but determined, dressed in jeans and a sweater instead of her usual designer suits. She'd pulled her hair back in a simple ponytail, and without makeup she looked younger, more vulnerable, more human. They took Nathan's car instead of the town car, borrowed from a friend and registered to a false name, just in case someone was watching. The bank was downtown, an old stone building with brass fixtures and that particular smell of money and marble. Olivia signed the access forms and they were escorted to a private room lined with safe deposit boxes. She used her key, and the attendant used his, and the long metal box slid out of its slot with a whisper of steel on steel. Inside was a manila envelope, thick with papers. Olivia opened it with shaking hands. Financial documents spilled out. page after page of bank transfers and shell company registrations and offshore accounts, and on top, a handwritten letter in her father's distinctive scrawl. "Olivia," it began, "if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry. I should have been more careful. I should have seen it coming." Nathan read over her shoulder as Olivia's hands shook harder. "I discovered that Richard Bartlett has been embezzling from the company for 7 years. He's been clever about it, hiding the money in layers of false transactions and offshore accounts. I have proof, all of it in this envelope. I was going to confront him tomorrow, but I wanted you to have this insurance first. If something happens to me, take this to the authorities. Don't trust anyone in the company, and please forgive me for putting you in danger. I thought I could handle this quietly. I was wrong. I love you. Be safe, Dad." The room was silent except for the sound of Olivia's breathing, sharp and quick. She whispered, "Richard, he was my father's best friend. I've known him my whole life." Nathan took the envelope and checked the documents. Bank statements showing transfers from Cartwright Industries to various shell companies. Corporate registrations in Richard Bartlett's name, buried under layers of legal paperwork. Email printouts discussing the movement of funds. James Kirkland's forensic report, 70 pages detailing the systematic fraud. It was all there, everything they needed. "We take this to the FBI," Nathan said. "Let them handle it from here." But Olivia was shaking her head, her face hard. "Richard has connections everywhere. Police, judges, politicians. My father knew that. That's why he was trying to handle it quietly." She looked at Nathan. "We need a confession, something undeniable, something he can't lawyer his way out of." It was a terrible idea. Nathan knew it was a terrible idea, but he also knew she was right. Men like Richard Bartlett didn't go down easily. They had expensive lawyers and political favors and the ability to make evidence disappear. "How?" he asked. Olivia's jaw set in that determined line Nathan was beginning to recognize. "We make him think he won. We tell him I found my father's files and I want to make a deal. Sell him my silence for a price he can't refuse." She pulled out her phone, the prepaid one, and started typing. "I'll send him a message. Ask for a meeting somewhere private where we can talk." Nathan caught her wrist. "If you do this, you're painting a target on yourself. He's already tried to kill you once." "Good," Olivia said coldly. "Let him try again. This time we'll be ready." She finished typing and sent the message before Nathan could stop her. His phone buzzed almost immediately. Richard's response was brief. "My office, 8 p.m. tonight. Come alone." Olivia showed Nathan the screen. "He thinks I'm scared and desperate. Perfect." Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to tell her this was too dangerous, that they should just take the evidence to the authorities and hope for the best. But he looked at her face and saw the same expression he'd seen in the mirror after his wife died. The look of someone who'd lost too much and was done being afraid. They spent the day preparing. Nathan called Jack and explained what they needed. Within 3 hours, they had a wire thin enough to be invisible under clothing and recording equipment that could capture audio through walls. Sarah protested the whole plan, said they were idiots, said she was washing her hands of both of them. Then she showed up with a medical kit and instructions on how to treat a gunshot wound, just in case. At 7:30, Nathan drove Olivia to Cartwright Industries headquarters. The building was mostly empty at this hour, just security guards and the occasional executive working late. They parked in the underground garage, and Nathan checked the wire one more time, making sure it was transmitting clearly. Jack and his team were in a van 2 blocks away, listening to every word. "You don't have to do this," Nathan said quietly. Olivia met his eyes. "Yes, I do. For my father, for everyone Richard hurt." She paused. "And for you. You almost died because of me last night." "I almost died because I chose to," Nathan corrected. "That's not on you." but Olivia was already getting out of the car, squaring her shoulders, preparing for the performance of her life. Nathan followed her to the elevator and rode up to the executive floor in silence. The doors opened onto a hushed corridor, thick carpet muffling their footsteps. Richard Bartlett's office was at the end of the hall, door open, light spilling out. He was waiting for them. Richard was in his early 60s, silver-haired and distinguished in an expensive suit. He looked like someone's kind grandfather, the sort of man who donated to charities and volunteered at hospitals. He smiled when he saw Olivia, warm and concerned. "Olivia, dear, thank you for coming. I've been so worried about you since that incident at the gala." His eyes flicked to Nathan. "I thought I said come alone." Olivia stepped forward, putting herself between Nathan and Richard. "He's my driver. After last night, I don't go anywhere without him." Richard's smile tightened. "Of course. Very sensible. Please sit down." He gestured to the chairs across from his desk. Olivia sat. Nathan remained standing, positioning himself where he could see both doors and the windows. Richard noticed, and something flickered behind his pleasant expression. "So," he said, settling into his leather chair, "your message said you found some of your father's files. What exactly did you find?" Olivia pulled out a folder, a copy of the audit, not the original, and laid it on the desk. "Everything, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the embezzlement, 7 years of theft, $50 million. My father knew. He was going to expose you." Richard didn't touch the folder. He just looked at it, his face carefully neutral. "Those are serious accusations, Olivia. Based on what?" "Some documents that could have been fabricated. Your father was paranoid in his last months, you know that." "I know he died 3 days after receiving this audit," Olivia said, her voice steady and cold. "I know someone tried to poison me last night the same way they probably poisoned him, and I know you're the only person with enough access and motivation to do it." Richard leaned back in his chair and steepled his fingers. "And yet, you came here alone to confront me with these accusations. Either you're very brave or very stupid." His smile was gone now, replaced by something harder. "I came here to make a deal," Olivia said. "You give me $20 million transferred to an account I specify, and I burn these files. We never speak of this again. You retire, cite health reasons, and disappear. I take over the company completely, and we both move on with our lives." Richard studied her for a long moment. Nathan could see him calculating, weighing options. $20 million is a lot of money," he said finally. "What makes you think I have that kind of liquid capital?" "You stole $50 million, Olivia pointed out. "I'm giving you a chance to keep 30. That's a generous offer, considering I could go to the FBI instead." Richard's laugh was unexpected, sharp and bitter. "The FBI? Yes, you could do that. And then what?" "I have lawyers, Olivia. I have friends in very high places. I have ways to make this all disappear, and you along with it." He leaned forward. "Your father thought he was untouchable too. Look how that worked out." The words hung in the air like a confession. Nathan felt his muscles tense, ready to move. Olivia's face had gone white, but her voice stayed level. "So you admit it? You killed him?" Richard shrugged. "I admit nothing. But hypothetically, if someone were embezzling from a company and the owner discovered it, that person might have to protect themselves. It's just business, Olivia. Nothing personal." "Nothing personal," Olivia repeated, her hands shaking now with anger overriding fear. "You murdered my father, your best friend, and it was just business." Richard's expression didn't change. "Last night was unfortunate. You were never supposed to come back from that gala. But your driver here," he nodded at Nathan, "turned out to be more observant than expected. Who are you really? You're not just a driver." Nathan stepped forward, putting himself partially in front of Olivia. "Secret Service. Presidential detail. Your hired waiter wasn't as professional as you thought. He could see the calculation in Richard's eyes, reassessing the threat level. So you're here as what? A witness? Richard smiled again, but there was no warmth in it. This entire conversation is meaningless without proof, Nathan. It's my word against hers, and I'm a respected executive with 30 years of service. She's a grieving daughter who's clearly unstable. He stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. I think this meeting is over. Take your files, Olivia. Do whatever you want with them. But know that if you try to use them against me, you'll lose everything. Your company, your reputation, your freedom. I'll make sure of it. Olivia stood too, her hand steady now. That's where you're wrong, Richard. This conversation isn't meaningless, because I recorded every word. She pulled open her jacket, showing him the wire taped to her chest. The FBI is listening right now. They heard you confess to murder and embezzlement. It's over. For the first time, Richard's composure cracked. His face went red, then white. You stupid girl! Do you have any idea what you've done? He moved fast for a man his age, pulling a gun from his desk drawer. Nathan was faster. He shoved Olivia behind him, already calculating angles and distances. Don't, he said quietly. Security's already on their way. FBI is right behind them. There's no way out. Richard kept the gun trained on them, his hand surprisingly steady. There's always a way out. I just need a head start. He backed toward the door, keeping them covered. You two stay right there. Don't follow me. Nathan could have rushed him, could have taken the shot, trusted his training to disarm Richard before he could fire. But Olivia was right behind him, and Richard was desperate, and desperate men made mistakes that got people killed. So he stayed still and watched Richard back into the hallway. The gun never wavered. Then Richard was gone, and they heard his footsteps running toward the stairwell. Nathan grabbed Olivia's hand. Come on, we're not letting him get away. They followed Richard down the stairs, Nathan in front, clearing corners and checking sight lines. 6 floors down, then 8, then 10. They burst out into the parking garage just in time to see Richard's car speeding toward the exit. And then the headlights appeared, multiple vehicles blocking the ramp. FBI agents with Jack Morrison standing front and center, badge held high. Richard slammed on his brakes and tried to reverse, but more cars were behind him. He was boxed in. Nathan and Olivia watched from the stairwell door as agents swarmed Richard's car, pulled him out, cuffed him. He was shouting something about lawyers and rights and false accusations, but no one was listening. Jack caught Nathan's eye across the garage and gave him a small nod. It was done. Olivia's hand found Nathan's and squeezed tight. We got him, she whispered. We actually got him. Nathan squeezed back. Your father would be proud. The next few hours were a blur of statements and paperwork and FBI agents asking the same questions in different ways. Nathan told them everything about the gala, the poison, the investigation. Olivia gave them her father's files, explained about the safe deposit box, played them the recording from tonight. By the time they were done, the sun was coming up, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Nathan drove Olivia home in silence. She stared out the window, watching the city wake up, processing everything that had happened. When they pulled into her building's garage, she didn't immediately get out. Thank you, she said finally, for everything, for saving my life, for helping me find the truth, for being exactly the kind of person my father trusted you to be. Nathan turned to look at her. I'm sorry about your father. I'm sorry I couldn't protect him. She met his eyes and he saw tears there, finally spilling over. You protected me. That's what he wanted. They sat there for a moment, two people who'd survived something terrible together. Then Olivia asked, What happens now? You're not really just a driver, and I don't really need one anymore. So what are you? Nathan thought about his daughter, about the life he'd built in anonymity, about his wife and the promises he'd made to keep their child safe. thought about the last 3 years of hiding and the sudden strange relief of being seen for who he really was. "I don't know," he admitted. "I've been running from my old life for so long, I'm not sure what comes next." Olivia wiped her eyes and managed a small smile. "Well, when you figure it out, let me know. Cartwright Industries could use a new head of security, someone with your particular skill set, someone I can trust." It was an offer Nathan hadn't expected, a way back into the world he'd left behind, but on his own terms this time. "I have a daughter," he said. "Sophie. She's 7. Any job I take has to work around her schedule." "I like kids," Olivia said. "Bring her to the office sometime. Let her see what her dad does." She opened the car door, then paused. The kiss at the gala. Was it really just about the poison? Nathan remembered that moment, the decision made in a fraction of a second, the feel of her mouth against his, the taste of champagne and chemical death, the way she'd looked at him after, angry and alive. "At the time, yes," he said honestly. "Now I'm not sure anymore." Olivia nodded like that was the answer she'd expected. "Well, when you figure that out too, let me know." She got out of the car, then leaned back in through the window. "Nathan Hayes, former Secret Service agent, current lifesaver, future head of security. Thank you for being the kind of person who kisses billionaires to save their lives." She was gone before he could respond, disappearing into the elevator with a wave. 3 months later, Nathan stood in Olivia's office, his office now, technically, since he'd accepted the job as head of security, watching her give a press conference about the company's restructuring after Richard Bartlett's arrest and conviction. She'd handled the scandal with grace, been transparent about the embezzlement, set up oversight committees and new financial controls. The company's stock had dipped initially, then rebounded stronger than before. People respected honesty. They respected strength. Sophie sat in the chair next to Nathan, swinging her legs and drawing pictures of what she called Daddy's boss lady. Olivia had been true to her word about welcoming his daughter to the office. Sophie came by twice a week after school, did homework in the break room, charmed everyone on staff. She'd asked once why Nathan had kissed Olivia at the gala, having overheard someone mention it. Nathan had explained about the poison, about saving lives, about doing the right thing even when it was hard. Sophie had thought about it seriously, then announced that kissing someone to save them was very heroic and also very gross. The press conference ended, and Olivia came back to the office looking tired but satisfied. She'd cut her hair shorter since taking over the company, wore pantsuits instead of dresses, moved through the world with new confidence. Grief had changed her, but so had survival. "How did I do?" she asked Nathan. "Perfect," he said. "Strong, transparent, honest. Your father would be proud." She smiled and bent down to admire Sophie's drawing. "Is that me?" Sophie nodded enthusiastically. "You're wearing a cape because you're a boss, and bosses are like superheroes." Olivia laughed, and Nathan felt something warm settle in his chest. This was good. This was right. Building something new from the wreckage of the past. His daughter safe and happy, a job that mattered, and Olivia, who'd become something more than an employer, something he was still figuring out how to name. She caught his eye over Sophie's head and raised an eyebrow in question. He smiled back, a promise of conversation still to come, of time to figure out what they were building together. That night, after dropping Sophie at home with the babysitter, Nathan returned to his apartment and pulled out an old box from the back of his closet. Inside were photos of his wife, wedding pictures and vacation snapshots and candid moments caught on film. He looked at her smile, remembered her laugh, felt the old grief settle lighter on his shoulders. "I'm doing okay," he told her picture. "Sophie's doing great. We're going to be fine." It felt true. For the first time in 3 years, it felt completely true. His phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. "Dinner tomorrow? Just us. I'll even let you pay." Nathan smiled and typed back. Deal, but only if you promise not to order poisoned champagne. Her response came quickly. Too soon, Nathan. Way too soon, but yes, I promise. He set the phone down and looked around his small apartment that had felt like a hiding place for so long. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. Maybe it was time to live again, to take chances, to kiss billionaires for reasons that had nothing to do with poison. The story could have ended there, neat and tidy, with bad guys in prison and good guys moving forward. But life was rarely that simple. A week later, Nathan received an envelope at his office. No return address, no stamps. Hand-delivered to reception. Inside was a single photograph, his wife's car, the night of the accident, taken from an angle the police photos hadn't shown. The intersection, the truck, the moment of impact captured in brutal clarity, and on the back, written in precise block letters, Richard Bartlett wasn't working alone. We're still watching. Nathan stared at the photo, feeling ice spread through his veins. The accident that had stolen his wife, that had shaped the last 3 years of his life, that he'd investigated until exhaustion forced him to stop.